He's not the first writer to live far from his homeland, but Nedim Gürsel, one of Turkey's greatest authors, likes to think of himself as a bridge, not only between two nations, but between the West and the East. He fled his country during the military coup of 1980 and is now a naturalized Frenchman living in Paris, where he heads research at the CNRS Institute and holds conferences on Europe. His latest was at Paris's Science Politics, grande ecole. Nowadays, he's a frequent visitor to his homeland, but he still faces a blasphemy trial for his novel Allah's Daughters, published in Turkey last year. The state prosecutor has already called for his acquittal, but there remains a 1 to 2 year prison term at stake. Euronews caught up with Nedim Gèrsel in Paris.
Bonjour, Monsieur Gürsel. Les Européens.
Europeans ask themselves if Turkey really is a secular nation that deserves integration in the European Union. How would you answer them?
Écoutez, moi je suis un fervent partisan.
You know, I'm a fervent partisan for my country's integration in the European Union. But now with this trial, I wonder all the same. Is Turkey drifting towards a more authoritarian regime? That wouldn't be compatible with Turkey's desire to be European. I just hope that my trial is a hiccup on the way. But I think Europe is right to ask questions, because today Turkey is perhaps not ready to join.
Isn't the EU, or rather, aren't Europeans to blame? When you talk with Turkish people, they often describe the contempt they have to deal with. They see the EU as a Christian club.
Oui, je crois que ce rejet.
Yes, the Turks hate this rejection.
Des Turcs.
It hurts their national pride.
Ça touche quand même quelque part leur fierté nationale.
Now, I'm against nationalism, but Turkey has been knocking on the EU's door for a long time now. And someone is always finding some excuse to deliver a speech against Turkish membership, as Mrs. Merkel and Mr. Sarkozy are doing at the moment.
Par exemple, avec Madame Merkel et avec Monsieur Sarkozy. La Turquie est un pays musulman.
Turkey is a Muslim country, but if it shared Europe's values, it would be an enriching experience for Europe. This is a difficult thing for Europeans to recognize. They won't admit it. But Turkey's candidature forces Europe to live up to its image.
La candidature de la Turquie renvoie à l'Europe sa propre image.
Does Europe affirm its own identity by rejecting the Turkish one? Or does it reconcile the two? A reconciliation is needed.
There is still progress to report. Freedom of expression has advanced in recent years. The poet Nazim Hikmet's nationality was restored, and last year the infamous Article 301, which punished the crime of denigrating the Turkish nation, was reformed. But there are organizations and individuals who claim these changes are merely cosmetic. Do you agree?
Qui dénonce des simples changements cosmétiques. Êtes-vous d'accord avec cette interprétation?
Écoutez, en tout cas, vous avez bien fait d'évoquer aussi le cas de Nazım Hikmet.
It's good that you mention Nazim Hikmet, one of Turkey's greatest poets. The state committed a terrible crime by jailing him for 16 years, then exiling him, and he died in Moscow in 1963.
Plus de 16 ans, et puis en le forçant à l'exil.
So our Prime Minister recently announced his rehabilitation and added that Turkey was no longer a country that persecuted its writers.
Nazım Hikmet a été réhabilité, a dit aussi que la Turquie n'était plus un pays qui jugeait ses écrivains.
I was obviously one of the first to cheer, but this trial is a glaring denial of that speech. So it's been said the changes are cosmetic, small, but maybe that's all for the good, because the democratization of Turkey still has far to go, and without Europe on the horizon, it will get nowhere.
Aller plus loin dans la démocratisation de la Turquie. Et sans la perspective européenne, ça va pas être possible.
You are one of the signatories to the letter of apology to the Armenians published by a group of Turkish intellectuals. Some have criticized the letter for not using the word genocide.
Écoutez, moi je pense que la Turquie doit faire un vrai travail de mémoire.
Turkey really needs to face up to its past. I think it was a good thing to sign this letter, because it breaks taboos. Taboos, like religion. The Armenian problem is a taboo in Turks' collective memory. It's the same for the Kurds. Only 10 years ago, we couldn't even talk about it. Couldn't even use the word Kurd.
On ne pouvait pas parler de cela. On ne pouvait même pas prononcer le nom de Kurde.
Now the President, Abdullah Gül, says the Kurdish question is the most important one facing our country. So there has been a clear evolution.
Do you consider yourself in exile?
C'est un exil volontaire.
It's a voluntary exile. I'm not an exile, in fact. I go to Turkey very often to nourish my imagination, to feed on Turkey's Ottoman heritage. I write historical novels and I love Istanbul. But there was a time just after the military coup on September the 12th, 1980, when I couldn't return to my country for 3 years.
Donc il fut une époque où je n'ai pas pu rentrer dans mon pays pendant 3 ans. Alors là, j'étais vraiment...
Then I really was in exile.
C'est pour cela que j'ai écrit un livre qui s'appelle...
That's why I wrote The Last Tram, when I expressed my feelings as a Turkish writer in exile, his wanderings, his attachment to his country, his city.
À la patrie, à la ville, à sa ville, etc. Maintenant, je ne me sens pas...
Now I don't feel like an exile at all. I'm a little in Paris, a little in Istanbul, and I always say metaphorically that I'm like the Bosphorus Bridge. That doesn't just join 2 banks, Europe and Asia, but also joins men and cultures. And I think that's the writer's role, because literature is universal and brings people together.
Rapproche les hommes entre eux. Mevsimler ne çabuk geçiverdi. Unutmak, unutmak, unutmak.